Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you had to make a really tough call? Weighing the expert opinion against a gut feeling, or maybe something that felt even deeper than that? Well, today we're going to jump into a high-stakes sea journey right out of the book of Acts. It's a gripping story about one single decision that had life or death consequences.
And this really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? When the storm clouds are gathering, who do you trust? The seasoned professional with all the experience in the world, or that one lone voice offering a warning that goes against all the so-called conventional wisdom? This is the very choice a Roman centurion had to make.
Okay, so let's set the scene. Our story kicks off at the port of Fair Havens on the island of Crete. Now, the ship carrying the Apostle Paul, who's a prisoner on his way to Rome, is stuck there. But this isn't just some inconvenient travel delay. Time is really starting to work against them because that dangerous Mediterranean winter is closing in, and it is closing in fast.
So, to really get why this is so risky, you gotta understand the timing. The Bible says the fast was now over, which is a reference to Yom Kippur, the Jewish Day of Atonement. Now, for any sailor back in the first century, this was a massive red flag. It basically meant the safe sailing season was done, finished. The seas were becoming incredibly treacherous. So even before anyone says a word, the risk level is already through the roof.
And it's right in the middle of this tense moment that Paul, the prisoner, stands up and delivers this chillingly specific warning. Now, this isn't just an educated guess from some guy who's traveled a lot, even though Paul had already been shipwrecked before. The sources really stress that this is a spirit-led prophetic insight. He's not just predicting some bad weather. He is foreseeing total disaster, damage, and even death.
So here we are at the real crossroads of the story. Paul has put his warning out there for everyone to hear. And now the guy in charge, a Roman centurion, he has to make a choice. And this is where we see this direct collision between two totally different kinds of wisdom.
And you can see the choice the centurion faced laid out right here. On one side, you've got Paul's divine warning, which is all about prioritizing safety above everything else. On the other side, you have the worldly wisdom of the pilot and the ship's owner. I mean, their logic makes sense, right? Fair Havens isn't a great spot to winter, so they want to push on to a better harbor called Phoenix. And of course, the majority agrees with the experts. So the centurion makes his call. He trusts the professionals over the prisoner. And you know what? At first, it totally looks like he made the right call. A gentle south wind starts to blow, and the crew thinks, hey, this is our perfect chance. They pull up the anchor and set sail, probably feeling pretty good about their decision. But this perfect weather, it's a total deception. It's a false calm that's luring them right out of the safety of the harbor and into the open sea. And bam, just like that, any illusion of control is absolutely shattered. That gentle breeze gives way to a sudden, violent reality. The decision to ignore Paul's warning now has immediate and, frankly, terrifying consequences. The text even gives this storm a name, the Euroclydon, also known as the Northeaster. Look, this wasn't just a bit of bad weather. This was a hurricane-force tempest, famous for its raw power. Using this specific name just adds this layer of authenticity. It tells us this was a real, named, and deeply feared weather event. And the ship is just completely and totally overpowered by it. The situation just goes downhill with shocking speed. What starts as a hopeful trip on day one immediately turns into a desperate fight for survival. By day two, they're chucking valuable cargo overboard. By day three, it's so bad they're throwing the ship's own equipment into the sea. And after many days of this, the final domino falls. Hope itself is gone. Man, you can almost feel the pure panic in these actions. The professional crew, the ones who so confidently set sail, are now just scrambling with desperate measures. They can barely get the lifeboat secured. They're literally trying to tie the ship together with ropes to keep it from breaking apart. They're just frantically throwing everything they can overboard. Every single action is just a reaction, a hopeless attempt to fight a force of nature that has them completely at its mercy. And this is where we hit the emotional and spiritual rock bottom of the whole story. After days of just being battered by the storm, with all their best efforts failing, the crew and the passengers, they finally arrive at a place of complete and utter hopelessness. Let's just let that sink in for a second. That's the official record of this moment. The experts, the soldiers, the sailors, everyone on board collectively gives up. They believe it's over. All human expertise has failed them, and every last bit of hope is just gone. So here's the crucial point. They are lost in every single sense of the word. With no sun or stars to see for days, they have no idea where they are. They are physically lost in the dark. But it's so much deeper than that. They're spiritually and emotionally in the dark too. They're completely adrift in a sea of hopelessness. So why does this ancient story about a storm matter to us, right here, right now? Well, because it is packed with some powerful lessons that are just as relevant today when we face our own personal storms. Let's break down some of the biggest takeaways. The crew's nightmare ordeal really gives us a powerful kind of survival guide. It's urging us to listen to those wise warnings even when they aren't popular, to look past those favorable circumstances that might be deceiving us. And when a crisis does hit, it shows us how important it is to let go of the non-essential stuff and to just hold on, to reinforce your foundations, even when it feels like all hope is lost. And that brings us all the way back to that central question. When the winds of life start howling and the waves are crushing over you, there are going to be plenty of voices, right? The experts, the majority, the voice of your own fear. This story challenges us to stop and consider which voice we will ultimately trust. So the question for you is, in your storm, whose counsel are you following?